Hello everyone, and welcome to a brand new theory and speculation video. Today, I want to talk about the ninth of the Fatui Harbingers, Grador, or Pantalone. He is one of the Harbingers who we haven't met in game yet, but we actually already know quite a bit about him. Now, this video does contain spoilers for the quests listed on screen now, so if you haven't done those, you have been warned. With all that said though, let's get right into the video. As I said in the intro, Pantalone is the ninth of the 11 Fatui Harbingers. This puts him above one other Harbinger we know, that being Tartaglia, which is a bit surprising given how he tends to act from behind the scenes. More interestingly, Pantalone does not possess a vision, as told to us in the Pale Flame artifact set. Him lacking a vision and being born into poverty is actually what led him to question the gods and eventually join the Fatui. From a young age, he questioned why the gods held control over so many aspects of life, including things they did not need, such as Mora. As a result, Rex Lapis, the sole source of Mora, seems to be the god he despises the most. These days, Pantalone is in charge of Snezhnaya's economic policies, while also being the wealthiest of all the Harbingers. He also runs the Northland Bank, which has branches all across Teyvat. After all, he wants to make Snezhnaya the heart that pumps money around the world, likely seeking to replace Mora entirely. Uncle Tien, the current Tianshu of Liyue Qixing, believes that his plan has the potential to shake the world to its core. Additionally, both Tartaglia and Wanderer characterize him by his ambition. This same ambition may very well be the reason why he often works closely with Dottore, the second of the Harbingers. Surprisingly, Pantalone has had quite a bit of influence on the world around us. Despite never meeting him, many quests and events were the result of his influence. All the way back in the Mondstadt Archon quests, we know that the Fatui had a big presence in Mondstadt, especially with La Signora being present there. However, the Goth Grand Hotel, where all the Fatui were staying at the time, was only rented out to the Fatui thanks to a generous sum of money given by Pantalone. Over at Wangshuin, we can meet a man named Landa, who asks us to recover 3 boxes for him as part of the world quest Big Business. During this quest, a treasure hoarder named Bauer finds and opens one of these boxes, but ends up trading it to us. She then warns us to not ask too much about the transactions, as they are at a very large scale. After finishing the quest, Landa's idle line reveals that he is in fact a Fatui agent working under Pantalone. This same shipment may be referenced at the Rusty Rudder in Fontaine, as a discarded bill mentions 3 shipments from Liyue. An NPC named Breck is mentioned in this letter, and talking to him reveals that he is working with a very prominent merchant from Snezhnaya, which fits Pantalone. In fact, many NPCs found at the Rusty Rudder may have been a part of the criminal organization Club di Pantaloni Novita, as a newspaper clipping can also be found here about that group's dismantlement. If this group is linked to Pantalone, then these NPCs could very well be Pantalone's associates. Another news clip here and a message on the Lumidos Harbor notice board also suggests that someone is artificially inflating the price of Chenyuvail's tea, which could definitely be a part of Pantalone's schemes. His title, Grador, even describes someone who buys out all of a product and sells it for a higher price. Back over in Liyue, there is a certain character who has had quite a few encounters with Pantalone, that being Yelan. In one of her past operations, her opponent ended up being this Harbinger. During the mission, she ended up losing one of her fascinating bracelets, so she infiltrated Pantalone's secret trade route and stole a highly valuable robe. This robe was actually meant as a gift for the Tsaritsa herself, but Yelan now uses it as a white mantle that she wears on her back. Later on, in Yelan's story quest, a Fatui member named Yusupov planned to assassinate Uncle Tian and establish Yi as the new Tianshu and as a pawn for the Fatui in the Liyue Qixing. When this plan failed, Yelan decided to make Theophan, another Fatui member, her pawn against the Fatui. Before she could do this, however, Pantalone intervened and extracted Theophan from Liyue. From this, Yelan learned that Pantalone still has his eyes set on Liyue, which she uses as a starting point for her next mission. Now, under the waters of Fontaine, you can find the Fortress of Meripede. However, not even an isolated location such as this is safe from the Fatui's influence. The weapon cash flow supervision tells us that Pantalone was actually the one who introduced credit coupons to the Fortress of Meripede long ago. This was long before Wriothesley was the administrator, as the coupons were in circulation when he first went to the fortress as a prisoner. As for why Pantalone did this, it was just an experiment in his goal to overthrow Mora. Obviously, it worked for the fortress, as Mora is basically worthless within its walls. Moving on though, I'd like to talk about future stories that we could see with Pantalone. He seems to have his sights set on Liyue at the moment, as seen with Yelan's story quest, as well as the possibility that he has something to do with the inflating prices of Chen Yubei's tea. Funnily enough, Yelan's specialty dish uses tea leaves from Chen Yubei, so perhaps he's inflating the prices as revenge for her stealing the robe from him. In all seriousness though, Pantalone focusing on Liyue actually makes quite a lot of sense. Liyue is the nation of Rex Lapis, the Geo Archon, who Pantalone despises. Being a member of the Fatui, Pantalone would likely know that Rex Lapis is not dead, and may see his departure from his role as Archon as his chance. I think it would make sense for us to get a story with him and Liyue at some point in the future. This would probably happen after Snezhnaya's story, but before we reach Khaenri'ah. I actually have plans to talk about the story gap between Snezhnaya and Khaenri'ah, which should be in its own separate video soon. Anyways, this story could involve Pantalone working to infiltrate and take over the economy of Liyue through various means. We may run into Yelan, who would inform us that Pantalone's plans have been getting more intense lately, and that if we don't do something, he could completely take over Liyue's economy without anyone noticing. With both the Traveler and Yelan working against him, Pantalone may be forced to come out of the shadows and take a more direct approach. Perhaps he could even get help from Dottore, using his technology to revive a fallen god to distract the Liyue Qixing and take advantage of the chaos. After all, most of the big battles in Liyue have been against ancient gods, so this would fit as well. Alternatively, this quest could start with us meeting Pantalone directly. He could be visiting the Liyue branch of the Northland Bank, which at the time, he could be using as his headquarters while he carries out his plans. Figuring that he's up to no good, we would end up getting involved and stopping his plans. This could even end up being an entire interlude quest, bringing in a bunch of characters like Yelan, Ningguang, and more. In the end, I would love to see Pantalone meet Zhongli, just to see how those two would interact. Before I end this video, I'd like to talk about the potential for Pantalone to become a playable character. As I said earlier, Pantalone doesn't have a vision, but that doesn't mean he can't be playable. Being a Fatui Harbinger, he likely has a delusion, which he could use in combat as a playable character. I think it would be quite fitting for him to use a Geo-delusion, using the power of the god he hates the most against him. His color scheme has a lot of violet though, so maybe he'll be Electro instead. Then again, a character's color scheme doesn't always define their element, so we'll just have to wait and see. Alternatively though, in a cruel joke, he could be granted a Geo-vision during an Archon quest or story quest that features him. I do think this is quite unlikely, as a big part of his motivation was never receiving a vision in the first place. Other Harbingers do have visions though, so it's not out of the question. As for when he'll be playable, it definitely won't be for a while. He hasn't even appeared in the game yet, so it will be a long time before he becomes a playable character. At the earliest, he would be playable in Snezhnaya's updates, so version 6.0 or after. We'll likely be getting a lot of playable Harbingers in Snezhnaya, so it may take a few updates before he gets his turn. Anyways, that's pretty much it for what we know about Pantalone and my speculations on his future. Even though he hasn't appeared in-game yet, his presence can be felt in so many quests, and it makes me want to meet him even more. If you want more of my thoughts on the Harbingers though, I recommend my most recent video on Arlecchino. I would love to hear what ideas you have for Pantalone in the comments below as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Sources and further readings are also in the description if you want to check them out. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll see you all in the next video.